There I was, standing behind the dusty counter at Ridgeview Fuel and Supply, when Beverly Lang, the infamous, power-hungry HOA president of Ridgeview Meadows, stormed in, slapped her designer purse on the counter, and barked, "Pump 4, fill it, full tank, charge it to the HOA." When I calmly told her she had to pay first like every other human being, she froze, then pulled out her phone, then dialed 911, and moments later, she was outside screaming, "He's denying essential services to HOA residents. I want him arrested," loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. I should have known then. This wasn't a gas dispute. This was the opening shot in a full-blown war with an HOA Karen who thought she owned the whole town. Before we dive into the story, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And if you've ever dealt with a crazy HOA, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Before I could even process the insanity of being threatened with arrest over 23 gallons of mid-grade gasoline, the day had already begun unraveling in ways I didn't see coming. Ridgeview Fuel and Supply sat right at the edge of Ridgeview Meadows, an HOA so strict they probably had regulations about the number of ice cubes residents were allowed to put in a drink. I'd worked the morning shift for almost 8 years, and nothing surprised me anymore. Not the HOA fines people came in ranting about, not the neighbors arguing over mailbox heights, not even the occasional resident demanding we respect their HOA discount, which didn't exist. But Beverly Lang, she was a different species, not dangerous, not violent, just entitled in a way that made the air feel heavier when she walked in. She was the type who believed rules were suggestions and consequences were for other people. And that morning, she strutted into the station like she owned the asphalt under my boots. Before Beverly arrived, the day had been painfully normal. My coworker and unofficial best friend, Tessa, was behind the coffee counter, attempting to revive a pot of burnt beans by adding yet another scoop. Her solution to everything? She wore her Ridgeview Fuel apron, like a warrior's armor, and she had the rare gift of turning every customer interaction into comedic commentary, whispered under her breath. "Mark," she said, leaning out from behind the racks of sugary snacks, "I can smell HOA trouble in the wind." "You're imagining things?" I muttered, stalking the gum display. Tessa raised an eyebrow. "The last time I felt this vibe, Mrs. Hartley tried to return a hot dog because it looked at her funny. "I'm telling you, Thursdays attract chaos." She wasn't wrong. Thursdays at Ridgeview Fuel had a strange magnetism for the eccentric, the disgruntled, and the plain confused. And right on cue, an engine roared outside, loud, uneven, coughing like it was dying, and then a battered silver SUV skidded sideways across 2 disabled parking spots. Tessa peeked through the window. "Ooh," she mused. "I give it 10 seconds before someone screams." The driver's door flew open so violently it bounced back. Out stepped Beverly Lang, HOA royalty, in a floral blouse, massive sunglasses, and that trademark expression that said the world inconvenienced her by existing. She marched toward the store like an eagle descending on prey. "Here we go," Tessa whispered dramatically. Beverly didn't even bother with greetings. She slammed her purse on the counter like she was making a legal declaration. "Pump 4, she barked. "Fill it. HOA account." I gave her the same smile I give toddlers trying to buy beer. "We don't have an HOA account. Payment first, ma'am." Her head snapped back like she'd been slapped by the concept of common sense. "Excuse me, I'm the president of Ridgeview Meadows." "That's nice," I replied. "But you still have to pay before I turn the pump on?" Tessa let out a snort so loud she disguised it as a sneeze. Beverly's jaw tightened. Then, like a switch flipping, she whipped out her phone and thrust it toward my face. "This," she announced, "is discrimination. Mrs. Butler, a regular buying her morning scratch-offs, muttered. "Honey, the only thing he's discriminating against is stupidity." But Beverly didn't hear a thing she was already narrating, a fake injustice for her camera, framing herself as the oppressed victim of a ruthless gas station dictator. Then came the moment when she stepped outside, dialed 911, and declared in her best dramatic voice that she was being denied essential services by a hostile non-HOA business. I should have known better than to think the situation would stop there. Beverly never did anything halfway. "Think she's done?" I asked. Tessa shook her head. "Oh no, Mark, this is just her warm-up lap." 15 minutes later, just as I finished cleaning the slushy machine, a second SUV rolled in, this one covered in American flags, HOA bumper stickers, and handwritten posters taped to the doors. Justice for HOA residents, stop community abuse, and my personal favorite, free gas is a right. Out stepped 3 women wearing matching t-shirts that read Ridgeview Meadows Community Standards Committee. Each held a protest sign in one hand and a phone recording in the other. Tessa nearly dropped the coffee pot. Oh my God. She brought back up? I sighed. We're being protested, aren't we? Congratulations, she said, patting my shoulder. You angered the HOA queen. Now she's assembled her court. Beverly stormed back inside, armed with a clipboard, her expression triumphant as if she'd personally drafted a Declaration of Independence. I am filing an official HOA complaint, she announced, slamming the clipboard onto the counter so hard the register beeped. Against who? I asked. You, she snapped, for denying service to HOA residents, for hostility, for discrimination based on community membership, Tessa mouthed. Community membership? I took a breath. Ma'am, you refuse to pay. That's it. No discrimination, no conspiracy, just payment. Outside, the HOA crew waved their signs like we'd committed a federal crime. Cars slowed down to stare. Someone across the street took out lawn chairs. This small town loved a spectacle. Then Beverly raised her phone and declared loudly, I will not be silenced. This business is a danger to Ridgeview Meadows. At that exact moment, Sheriff Cole Warren pulled into the lot. The man had the calm energy of someone who had dealt with too many HOA arguments in his lifetime. He stepped out, tipped his hat toward us, and muttered, Thursday again, huh? You have no idea, I replied. Cole listened patiently while Beverly acted out her version of reality. She pointed wildly, stomped her foot, and at one point mimed being handcuffed by an invisible assailant. When she finally finished, breathing hard, Cole simply asked, Did you pay for your gas? Her chin lifted defiantly. No. But HOA residents shouldn't have to. Cole blinked once, twice, then he said, Ma'am, this is a private business. You can't demand free gas. And you absolutely cannot call 911 for not getting it. He issued her a citation for misuse of emergency services while she sputtered and shrieked. The HOA ladies gasped like a soap opera twist had just hit. And still, I could see in Beverly's eyes that she wasn't done. Not even close. As she drove away in a fury, Tessa leaned against the counter and whispered, Mark, prepare yourself. That woman is at home right now planning Act 2. I wanted to believe she was wrong. I wanted to think Beverly would stop after getting humiliated by law enforcement. I wanted to pretend the worst was over, but deep down, I felt a knot forming in my stomach, the kind that comes before a tornado hits. Because if there's one thing more dangerous than an HOA Karen, it's an HOA Karen who thinks she's been publicly challenged, and I had just lit the fuse. The next morning, I pulled into the parking lot with the same sinking feeling a soldier probably gets when he knows he's returning to the battlefield he barely survived yesterday. Ridgeview Fuel and Supply looked exactly the same faded sign, same crooked ice freezer, same dent in pump 3, but the air felt different. Charged. Like the calm before the HOA storm, I hadn't even stepped out of my truck when I noticed something taped to the front door. A piece of poster board, written in aggressive red glitter marker, hanging crookedly, as if whoever put it up was too angry to measure straight. It read, Boycott Ridgeview Fuel. Justice for HOA residents. The glitter sparkled in the morning sun, taunting me. Only Beverly would wage war with arts and crafts supplies. Inside, Tessa was sipping her third coffee of the day, which meant she'd been here long enough to witness the chaos. She looked at me the way a medic looks at someone who doesn't yet realize they've been shot. Before you ask, she said, holding up a hand. No. That sign was not there when I opened. Someone snuck up at dawn with a glue stick and righteous fury. I groaned. Please tell me Beverly went home, slept it off, and realized the world doesn't owe her gasoline. Tessa slid her phone across the counter. Brace yourself. On the screen was a Facebook live stream labeled, On Location, at the scene of the crime. The crime was apparently me. Across the street, right at the entrance to Ridgeview Meadows, stood Beverly and 4 HOA diehards holding signs, waving them at passing cars. One woman had a megaphone and was dramatically chanting something that sounded like, No more gas shame. Another clutched a Bible to her chest, as if protecting herself from demonic fuel attendants. "They've been at it since sunrise," Tessa said, deadpan. One tried to throw a bag of dog poop at the door. She missed and hit her own windshield. For a second I laughed, hard. Because honestly, this was too ridiculous. But the humor evaporated quickly. There were already dozens of shares, comments, and angry face reactions under the live stream. Most people were laughing at Beverly, but a handful were egging her on. I suddenly felt the weight of it all pressing down on my shoulders. This wasn't just a quirky HOA fight anymore. This was public, this was loud, and this was getting bigger. 20 minutes into the shift, the first concerned resident wandered in. She wore yoga pants, a Ridgeview Meadows visor, and an expression like she'd smelled something rotten. She pretended to browse the windshield wiper section while filming me from behind a shelf of motor oil. "Hi there," I said. She flinched like I'd hissed at her. "Oh, I'm just checking the, viscosity." She waved a random bottle. "Is the fascist working today?" I stared at her. I have absolutely no idea what that means. She slipped out the door faster than a spooked deer. A man in a tie-dye shirt came next. He strolled up to the counter with a bag of chips and leaned in conspiratorially. "Hey, Mon," he whispered. "How do you feel about free enterprise?" He wiggled his eyebrows like he expected me to confess to running a black market gas cartel. "I feel," I said, "that you have to pay for your chips." He nodded dramatically, as if I'd said something deeply philosophical, then wandered off without buying anything. By 10 a.m., the store felt less like a business and more like an aquarium with tourists tapping the glass. Every customer recorded something. Some wanted a fight, some wanted proof I wasn't the monster, Beverly claimed, and some just wanted to be part of the drama. I tried to stay calm, but my patience was thinning fast. That was when two men in cheap suits walked through the door. They marched up to the counter with chests puffed out, badges swinging on lanyards that looked like they'd been printed on a home computer. "We're with the Community Consumer Protection Agency," the taller one said. "No, you're not," Tessa muttered under her breath. "We're here," the shorter one continued, "to investigate allegations of systemic harassment, refusal of service to HOA residents, and potential violations of community economic fairness." Tessa leaned on the counter, blinking slowly. "Economic fairness. It's very serious," the tall one said. "We need to see your service policies, cashier training documents, and community compliance forms." I folded my arms. "Let me guess, Beverly sent you?" Their eyes darted away, which was answer enough. That was when Tessa struck. With the same calm authority one might use while reading sacred scripture, she reached under the register and produced a wrinkled sheet of paper. "According to corporate policy," she said, handing the paper over, "all official complaints must be accompanied by a ceremonial duck dance." Both men froze. "A what? A duck dance?" she repeated seriously. "You know, quacking, flapping arms, waddling in a circle. Otherwise, the complaint can't be processed." I bit my cheek so hard not to laugh that I nearly tasted blood. Tessa demonstrated enthusiastically, arms flapping, feet stomping, quacking like she was auditioning for a cartoon. Mrs. Butler, observing from the lottery counter, laughed so hard she dropped her soda. The two investigators stared at each other, mortified. Then they muttered something about checking with their supervisor and scrambled out the door like raccoons fleeing a flashlight. For one glorious moment, the store was quiet again. But peace never lasts around Ridgeview Meadows. At 11 a.m., Bradley Knox, district manager, my boss's boss, stormed in like a thundercloud wearing khaki pants. His face was as red as the gas pumps outside. He slapped a stack of printed emails onto the counter. "What the hell is going on, Mark?" he barked. "The Chamber of Commerce called me. My insurance agent called me. And now I've got HOA board members demanding a meeting. This station is trending on the town Facebook page. Trending, Mark." I took a breath and explained everything calmly. How Beverly had demanded free gas, how she'd called the cops, how she'd staged a protest, how she unleashed fake investigators like we were living in some dystopian HOA dictatorship. Bradley didn't care about details. He cared about numbers, reputation, revenue. "You fix this," he snapped, "or I suspend you until it blows over." His words hit me like a punch to the ribs. Suspend me. Over Beverly's tantrum, I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice steady. So you want me to bow to the HOA and fuel their cars for free? I want the drama gone, he said. I don't care how. He walked out without waiting for my response. The door slammed so hard, a shelf of beef jerky shook. I sat behind the counter and exhaled slowly. My hands were trembling not from fear, but from a new fire building in my chest. This is insane, I whispered. Tessa sat beside me on the little step behind the counter, sipping her coffee like this was all part of the Thursday routine. You know, she said thoughtfully, if Beverly wants war, maybe it's time we stop playing defense. I looked at her. What do you mean? Not pranks, not yelling, something smarter? She tapped her temple. We expose her, everything, her lies, her misuse of authority, her abuse of HOA power. We let the whole town see the truth. I shook my head. Beverly controls the HOA. She has a cult following. Tessa grinned. But I have something she doesn't. What's that? A cousin who works in the mayor's office? I blinked. The mayor, as in the mayor of Cedar Ridge. She nodded. And he owes me a favor. Part of me knew this was madness. The other part, the part that had been humiliated, threatened, filmed, and nearly suspended, was ready to fight back. Tessa leaned closer. Tonight, we gather everything. Security camera footage, the 911 transcript, screenshots from HOA groups, and tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? She smiled like a strategist, preparing to flip a kingdom. Tomorrow, she said, we invite the mayor to the circus Beverly built. Outside, across the street, Beverly lifted her megaphone and screamed something about economic oppression. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and felt the shift within myself. No more being intimidated, no more being painted as the villain, no more letting an HOA dictator decide my fate. If Beverly wanted a showdown, she was going to get one. And this time, the entire town would be watching. By noon, word had already spread farther than I'd ever imagined. Apparently, when an HOA president declares a gas station an enemy of the community, people take notice mostly because it's entertaining. Ridgeview Meadows residents weren't exactly strangers to drama. Most of them lived under the constant fear of fines for harmless offenses, like leaving a garden hose visible or choosing the wrong shade of beige paint. Beverly Lang had turned the neighborhood into her personal kingdom, and folks were used to bending under her rules. But seeing her go to war with a gas station, that was new, and people love new. The first real sign of escalation came in the form of 3 HOA board members marching down the sidewalk like a parade of angry mall cops. They carried clipboards, wore matching Ridgeview Meadows polo shirts, and strutted around as if they had jurisdiction over the entire county. Tessa spotted them from inside the store and whispered, "Here comes the HOA Enforcement Task Force. God help us all." They didn't enter the store immediately. Instead, they formed a semicircle outside the front door and began taking photos. Photos of the pumps, photos of the trash cans, photos of the security cameras, photos of me, through the glass, as if capturing images of a dangerous wild animal. Tessa waved joyfully at them. They didn't wave back. Finally, one of them, a man with an unfortunate mustache that looked like it had been drawn on with a marker, stepped inside. He held out a clipboard like it was evidence in a crime investigation. "Sir," he announced, "we are filing a community standards violation." I blinked. "Against who?" "Against you," he said triumphantly, "for refusing service to residents of Ridgeview Meadows." I stared at him. "Sir, this isn't an HOA property. You cannot file." He thrust a pen toward me. "Sign here to acknowledge the violation." I pushed the clipboard gently back toward him. Respectfully, no. The man looked personally offended that I didn't crumble in fear of Beverly's kingdom. His mustache twitched. "This will be escalated," he threatened. Tessa leaned over the counter. "Sweetie," she said kindly, "you're wearing Skechers and a polo shirt, not a badge. Please go away before you sprain something." He gasped and stormed out, shouting at the other board members. They huddled like a football team planning the next disastrous play. But Beverly wasn't done. She arrived minutes later, flanked by 2 SUVs and at least a dozen HOA supporters waving new signs. These weren't handwritten anymore. No glitter, no poster board. These were professionally printed, glossy, bold, dramatic fonts. "Stop business discrimination. Restore HOA rights. End hostile service practices," Tessa whispered. She made posters. "Mark, She had posters printed, "This woman is a menace with a credit card." And Beverly herself, she carried a megaphone the size of a toddler. She climbed onto the curb as if ascending a stage and began speaking to a crowd that had grown from curious bystanders to full-fledged spectators. "This business," she declared, pointing directly at our store, "has engaged in targeted harassment against our HOA community. They refused our right to service. They denied our essential needs, and today, we stand united. Pay for your gas," a man across the street shouted. The crowd laughed. Beverly glared at him. "We stand united," she continued, "against oppression." Oppression, a strong word. Usually used for actual injustices, Beverly was applying it to gasoline. I wiped a hand down my face. Soon, cars began slowing down just to witness the spectacle. Some drivers honked supportively, not necessarily for Beverly, but because people love honking. Someone set up a lawn chair. A teenager live-streamed while eating a bag of chips like it was a movie. The dramatic music practically wrote itself. Inside the store, Tessa had her phone out, texting rapidly. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Operation Expose Beverly," she said. "I'm inviting the mayor." "You actually did that?" "Oh yeah," she said. "I told him there was a civil rights protest happening at the gas station," he said. "On my way." I froze. "You told him what?" Tessa shrugged. "Relax. He knows what this town is like. He probably assumed it involved Beverly anyway." The wave of chaos continued. More HOA supporters arrived. More cameras appeared. Someone brought a cooler of snacks, turning the protest into a tailgate party. One HOA lady handed out pamphlets titled, "Protect Our Community from Hostile Businesses." I flipped one open. Inside, there were bullet points accusing us of gas pump discrimination, emotional harassment, unfair fuel practices, cultural insensitivity toward HOA residents. "What does that even mean?" I asked aloud. Tessa peeked over my shoulder. "It means Beverly owns a thesaurus." The situation escalated further when another car arrived, this one, a shiny black sedan with tinted windows. For a moment, the entire crowd went silent. Even Beverly lowered her megaphone. The car door opened, and out stepped Sheriff Cole. In full uniform, sunglasses on, arms crossed, he walked over slowly, as if he were approaching a gathering of raccoons who might bolt at any sudden movement. The HOA supporters murmured, "Is he here to arrest the gas guy? I bet if Beverly insists, he has to." No. "He's here to protect HOA rights," Tessa whispered. "He's here because I texted him too." I stared at her. "You what?" "Look, I invited everyone important. If Beverly wants an audience, she's getting one." Cole didn't say anything at first. He looked over the crowd. He looked at the signs. He looked at Beverly. Then he sighed so loudly the whole neighborhood heard it. "All right," he said. "What now?" Beverly marched up to him, megaphone nearly clipping his chin. "Officer," she declared, "this business is engaged in discriminatory conduct against our HOA. They are targeting residents. They are denying services. We demand justice." Cole blinked. "Ma'am, they told you yesterday to pay for your gas." "This is bigger than gas," Beverly insisted dramatically. "This is about community safety." "Ma'am," he said again, "it is a gas station, not a war zone." But Beverly didn't hear him. She turned back to the crowd, ready for Act 2 of her speech. Then another car arrived. A sleek black SUV, polished, official. This time the silence was complete. The mayor stepped out. Mayor Dan Huxley wasn't a man who enjoyed drama, but he enjoyed order. And right now, this intersection looked like a circus. He adjusted his jacket, walked forward, and surveyed the madness. Beverly rushed toward him. "Mayor Huxley," she cried, "thank goodness you're here." He held up a hand. "Beverly, before you begin, why is half the neighborhood blocking the gas station?" She launched into a frenzied recap that included words like oppression, discrimination, hostile workplace, violation of HOA dignity, and of course, economic abuse. The mayor listened, patiently. Too patiently. That was the first sign he was about to destroy her. When she finished, he clasped his hands behind his back. "Beverly," he said, "did you pay for your gas?" The crowd went still. Beverly blinked. "That's irrelevant." "It's extremely relevant," he replied. Then, like reading from a script, he calmly and publicly recited her history of HOA overreach, threatening to sue neighbors over seasonal wreaths, trying to ban chalk drawings on sidewalks, filing complaints over wind chimes, attempting to enforce a curfew on non-HOA residents who live nowhere near Ridgeview Meadows, even trying to pass a rule banning excessively joyful laughter after 9 p.m. People in the crowd nodded, some chuckled, a few actually clapped. Beverly's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen on a human before. "This community," the mayor continued, "is tired of your theatrics," she sputtered, trying to respond, but the mayor simply raised his hand again. "And for the record," he added loudly, "this gas station is not under HOA jurisdiction. You cannot demand free services, you cannot weaponize your position for personal gain, and you absolutely cannot stage protests that block public access." The crowd erupted, some laughing, some cheering, some recording. Beverly looked around frantically, realizing her loyal supporters were no longer loyal. Their signs slowly lowered, their phones stopped recording, some quietly backed away. She'd lost them, completely. Tessa leaned toward me. "This," she whispered, "is better than television." And for the first time in days, I felt the pressure lift. The war wasn't over yet, but the tide had officially turned. Sheriff Cole stood there with his arms crossed, letting the noise of the crowd settle. The mayor's last words were still echoing across the lot when the decibel level of the HOA protest dipped into an uneasy silence. It was the kind of silence that comes right after someone drops a microphone or a bomb. Beverly's supporters looked uncertain, glancing between her and the mayor like children realizing their favorite teacher might not actually know what she's doing. A few people quietly folded their glossy protest signs under their arms. One woman wearing a Ridgeview Meadows Unity shirt mouthed something like, "Oh my God," before backing away toward her car. But Beverly wasn't someone who surrendered. She clenched her clipboard so tightly her knuckles turned white. "This is a misunderstanding," she said sharply. "The mayor has been misinformed. I will not allow this business to endanger our HOA community." The mayor rubbed his temples as if he suddenly remembered he had more important things to do, like literally anything else. "Beverly," he said with a tired sigh, "please don't make this worse." But she was already marching back toward the crowd. Megaphone raised. "Everyone stay strong," she shouted. "We have rights, and I will not be bullied by." That was when a man in a lawn chair yelled, "Lady, go home." The crowd laughed. It wasn't cruel laughter, not yet, but it was enough. Enough to crack her confidence, enough to rattle her. The shift in energy was immediate and obvious. A few HOA board members stepped back, someone lowered their phone. A couple of kids sitting on bikes whispered to each other and pointed at her with wide, amused eyes. It wasn't a protest anymore. It was a spectacle. Inside the store, Tessa whispered, "Okay, that's the beginning of the end. Watch this." She was right. The mayor turned to Sheriff Cole. "Do we need to clear this area?" Cole nodded. "We do. They're blocking access to a business and impeding traffic. Plus, I'm not dealing with another Facebook riot." He walked toward the crowd with the calm confidence of someone who had eaten worse problems for breakfast. "All right, folks," he announced. "You've had your say, but this isn't an HOA meeting. This is a public lot. You're not allowed to obstruct customers or harass employees." He paused deliberately. "And no," he added, "free gas is not a constitutional right." That earned more laughter. Beverly pushed forward again, voice trembling in frustration. "Sheriff, you're supposed to be neutral." "I am," Cole replied evenly. "That's why I'm enforcing the law, not HOA fantasies." Her jaw worked like she was chewing invisible gum. She opened her mouth to speak again, but before she could, someone approached Cole, one of the HOA board members. A soft-spoken older man named Henry who looked like he hadn't had a good night's sleep in years. "Sheriff," Henry said nervously, I think Beverly may be acting outside the board's approval." That sentence hit Beverly harder than anything I'd ever seen. "Henry," she snapped, "you will not embarrass the HOA like this." He stepped back, startled. "But you never called a vote?" "I don't need a vote," she screamed. The mayor raised a brow. "Yes, Beverly, actually, you do." The tension snapped like a rubber band. Several other HOA members suddenly found their voices. "We didn't agree to any of this," a woman admitted. "She told us the gas station committed a hate crime," another whispered. "I thought there was a safety issue," someone added. "She said there was an explosion," the crowd murmured. Tessa elbowed me lightly. She said, "What?" Even Sheriff Cole couldn't help but let out a disbelieving scoff. Beverly, there was no explosion. She dug her nails into her clipboard. I was making a point. A false point, the mayor clarified. One that caused panic, disrupted traffic, wasted law enforcement time, and created a disturbance. Beverly's eyes darted wildly. She was unraveling. No, she hissed. No, this is not how this ends. You don't get to embarrass me. I am the HOA president. I represent this community. That was when Henry stepped forward again, this time with surprising courage. No, he said firmly. You represent yourself, you act without us, you misuse funds, you start fights with businesses, you fine people for having the wrong colored bird feeder. She fined me, someone in the crowd shouted, for drying towels on my own porch. She fined me, another added, for leaving my garage door open for 14 minutes. The murmurs rose into open complaints. The momentum was shifting fast. Beverly was losing control of her own army. She tried to climb onto a nearby bench to regain height and authority, but it only made her look more unstable. Listen to me, she screamed, but nobody did. Phones were out, people were recording, laughing, whispering, watching her meltdown unfold like a season finale of HOA Housewives, and then the moment Tessa had been waiting for, Cole calmly said, Beverly Lang, based on your misuse of emergency services yesterday and your continued obstruction today, I'm issuing you a second citation. The crowd gasped. Beverly nearly toppled off the bench. You can't, she stammered. This is political retaliation. No, Cole corrected. This is consequences. As he wrote the citation, Beverly's breathing grew erratic. She looked around desperately for support, any support, but all she saw were faces avoiding her eyes. Her clipboard slipped from her hands and clattered onto the pavement. I will sue all of you, she whispered. Every single person here, you'll regret this. Nobody replied. Instead, the mayor turned toward me toward the gas station and said in full view of everyone, for the record, this business did nothing wrong. They followed the law. They treated a customer like they treat everyone else. And Beverly's behavior is unacceptable. When he said it out loud, publicly, it felt like a boulder lifting off my chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt vindicated. Tessa pumped her fist in the air behind the counter. Yes, the mayor is our new mascot. But the finale wasn't over yet. As Cole handed Beverly the citation, Henry cleared his throat and spoke loud enough for the crowd to hear. I hereby call for a vote of no confidence in our HOA president. Several people gasped. Effective immediately, Henry continued. We should schedule an emergency HOA meeting to remove Beverly from her position. The crowd erupted not in chaos, but in agreement, applause, cheers, a few relieved groans. Beverly's face contorted into something between fury and disbelief. You can't do this, she shrieked. I am the HOA. No, Henry said gently. You were. And with that, Beverly truly ran to her SUV, slammed the door, and sped away. Her tires screeching dramatically as a protest sign fluttered off her hood like a defeated flag. Everyone watched her disappear down the road. Then, slowly, the crowd dissolved. People folded their chairs, packed their coolers, deleted the angry posts they'd made overnight. Some even apologized to me personally before leaving. The chaos evaporated as quickly as it had arrived. Inside, Tessa leaned against the counter and exhaled. Wow, she said. That was beautiful. I nodded slowly. I think we just witnessed a political coup. And it was free, she added cheerfully. Not even pay-per-view. I laughed, really laughed for the first time since Beverly walked into my store demanding free gas. The worst seemed over, or so I thought. The parking lot slowly returned to normal after Beverly's dramatic retreat, but the emotional whiplash still rattled through my chest. One moment, I was bracing for an HOA-led civil war. The next, the mayor himself had publicly declared my innocence while the entire neighborhood turned on their own president. It felt surreal, like watching a building collapse in slow motion, except the building was Beverly's ego. Tessa wandered outside to pull down the crooked glitter sign still taped to our window. She held it up, amused. Should we frame this? I feel like it's historic. Burn it, I muttered, rubbing my eyes. Or sell it online. Someone out there collects HOA memorabilia. But the truth was, despite the relief, exhaustion hit me hard. The adrenaline drained from my body all at once, leaving behind the fatigue of someone who just fought off a bear using nothing but customer service and sarcasm. I was still trying to catch my breath when a white sedan rolled into the lot. I recognized the car before I recognized the woman getting out of it, Mrs. Helens, a sweet elderly resident of Ridgeview Meadows who came in every week for scratch-off tickets and diet soda. She'd always been polite, always tipped her head kindly whenever she spoke to me. Today, she had flowers. She shuffled toward me with a small bouquet wrapped in plastic. "Dear," she said gently, "I want to apologize for all of that." "All of what?" I asked. Even though I knew exactly what she meant, she waved her hand vaguely in the direction of the neighborhood. The circus, the hysteria, the Beverly of it all. I stifled a laugh. Even she was calling it that. I didn't participate. She continued. But I watched from my window, and I saw how you handled yourself. You were patient. You were calm. You didn't treat anyone badly. That woman, she paused, has been a thorn in this community for years. I'm glad someone finally stood up to her. She pressed the flowers into my hands. "For you," she said, "and for that nice girl who works with you, I hope things calm down now." I thanked her, genuinely touched. She left with a smile, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. But peace is fragile when your business sits on the border of an HOA war zone. By mid-afternoon, my district manager, Bradley, returned, though this time, he didn't storm inside like a corporate thundercloud. Instead, he hesitated at the doorway, cleared his throat, and approached the counter with the cautious humility of someone attempting an apology. "Mark," he said, I heard about what happened. You were here this morning," I reminded him. "Right," he said quickly. "But I heard what the mayor said, and the sheriff, and pretty much the entire town." He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "I may have overreacted earlier? And I shouldn't have threatened suspension before hearing your side?" I nodded slowly, letting him stew in it. He'd earned a little discomfort. As a gesture of goodwill, he continued, sliding an envelope onto the counter, "The company wants to offer you a bonus for maintaining professionalism during a public incident. And because corporate saw the live stream," I blinked. "Corporate saw the live stream. Oh yeah," he sighed. "It's trending on the local subreddit too." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Before he left, Bradley added, "Good job, Mark, really. Not everyone could have handled that mess." It wasn't the warmest apology ever, but in Bradley speak, it was practically a sonnet. Tessa elbowed me as soon as he walked out. "Look at you," she whispered. "Hero of the working class, champion of the gas pumps, slayer of HOA tyrants." "Shut up," I said, though I couldn't stop smiling. We thought that would be the end of the chaos, a resolution, a satisfying conclusion, a roll of credits. But of course, life never wraps itself neatly. Around 4 p.m., a group of Ridgeview Meadows residents entered the store, not with anger, or cameras, or signs, but with relief. They thanked me. They apologized for Beverly. They bought snacks. It seemed like the whole neighborhood had collectively exhaled. Until the last resident stepped inside, he was tall, thin, and wore a suit that was too formal for a gas station visit. His shoes were polished, his hair slicked back. He introduced himself with a sharp handshake. "I'm Richard Lawson," he said, "the interim president of the Ridgeview Meadows HOA." My heart stopped. "Interim what now? President?" he repeated. "Beverly was removed during an emergency board meeting this afternoon," Tessa gasped. "They actually voted her out," he nodded. "We've been needing to do it for a long time. Your incident was simply the final straw." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a letter, professional, embossed, official-looking. "We drafted this apology on behalf of the entire HOA. We also want to assure you that no resident should ever expect special treatment, free services, or anything outside the bounds of normal business practice." I took the letter slowly, still stunned. "And," he added, lowering his voice, "we will be conducting a full audit of Beverly's actions, including her misuse of HOA funds. There may be consequences." "Oh, there will be," Tessa muttered. Richard offered one last handshake before leaving. "Thank you for your patience, Mr. Dawson, and your integrity." After he left, Tessa leaned on the counter like she was melting. "I can't believe it," she said breathlessly. You dethroned an HOA Karen? You're like a medieval knight? A legend? The Beverly Slayer? Tessa? I groaned. No, seriously, I feel like we need t-shirts. Despite her teasing, a quiet sense of pride grew in my chest, not because I wanted to be a hero, not because I wanted attention, but because I had stood my ground when it mattered, even though it would have been easier to cave. And it was finally over. Or so we believed. We closed the shop at 8 and stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sunset cast long shadows across the parking lot, and for the first time in 2 days, I felt peace, not the fragile kind, but the real kind. The kind that fills your lungs and settles your mind. Tessa locked the door behind us. You did good, Mark. We did good. I corrected. She smiled. Okay, but I'm taking credit for the duck dance thing. We stood there for a moment, sipping sodas, staring at the quiet road. Then, from far down the street, a pair of headlights appeared. A lone SUV, slow, creeping. My entire body stiffened. No, I whispered. Not her. Please, not her. The SUV rolled closer, and the familiar silhouette behind the wheel became clear. It was Beverly. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled, her eyes wild, not with anger this time, but with something hollow. She didn't stop, she didn't honk, she didn't shout. She simply drove past us at a crawl, staring straight ahead. For the first time, she looked small, human, broken. The SUV disappeared into the night. Tessa exhaled. Well, that's haunting. I nodded silently. The war had ended, Beverly had lost her crown, but the aftermath, the echoes of her downfall would linger in Ridgeview Meadows for a long time, maybe forever. The next morning, the world felt different, not calmer. Exactly, but emptied out. Like the air after a thunderstorm, still heavy, still charged, but quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. I drove toward Ridgeview Fuel and Supply, half expecting to see police tape, or protest signs littering the ground, or a giant HOA banner demanding justice. Instead, the lot was peaceful, too peaceful. Tessa arrived a few minutes later, coffee in hand, hair still half-tamed from sleep. She looked around cautiously, as if expecting Beverly to leap out from behind a pump like a suburban goblin. It's quiet, she whispered. Yeah, I said. And I don't trust it, she snorted. You've been traumatized by a 2-year-old woman with a megaphone? That's understandable. We unlocked the store and stepped inside. Everything looked normal, mercifully normal. But when I turned on the register, a notification popped up, one I didn't want to see, 67 new messages on our business voicemail. Oh no, Tessa murmured. We're still famous. I decided to ignore the messages until I had at least 1 cup of coffee in my system. But peace didn't last long. At 9:17 a.m., just as I took my first sip, a black truck pulled into the lot. A man climbed out, broad-shouldered, wearing sunglasses, and carrying a clipboard. Tessa stiffened. Please tell me that's not another HOA inspector. He entered with a calm confidence. Unlike the jittery fake investigators Beverly had sent, he approached the counter. Morning, he said. I'm Todd Maddox, County Code Enforcement. My stomach dropped. Oh, can I help you? We received several complaints filed yesterday regarding your business, he said, flipping through his clipboard. Allegations of unsafe practices, structural negligence, and non-compliance with community ordinances. Tessa groaned loudly. Beverly, it's Beverly again. The ghost of HOA past has risen. Todd gave a sympathetic nod. I figured half the town has already called to warn us she was on a rampage, but I still have to check the reports. Go ahead, I said, resigned. He walked the store, inspected the pumps, checked the fire extinguishers, glanced over our posted permits, and looked slightly confused when he opened the supply closet and found nothing but paper towels and a lonely mop. After 30 minutes, he returned to the counter. Well, he said, clearing his throat, I'm happy to report that this is the most compliant gas station I've inspected in 2 years. I blinked. Seriously? Oh yeah, he chuckled. I've had stations where the fire suppression system was held together with duct tape. You guys are practically textbook perfect. Relief washed through me. Todd leaned in, lowering his voice. Between you and me, Mark, we're used to Beverly. We get at least 1 false complaint a month. She once tried to report a swing set as an unlicensed structure. That tracks. Tessa mumbled. I'll close the case, Todd said. No violations, no fines, and if she files anything else, I'll redirect it straight to the HOA board. He gave a friendly wave and left. The moment the door closed, Tessa burst into laughter. The woman has officially lost her teeth. She can't even weaponize code enforcement anymore. I'll drink to that, I said, raising my coffee. But the universe wasn't done. Not yet. Around noon, a man in his late 40s wearing a Brooks Brothers suit entered the store. He carried a leather briefcase and moved with a kind of polished authority that set off alarm bells in my head. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. My name is Attorney Samuel Trent. I represent the Ridgeview Meadows Homeowners Association. Tessa choked on her gum. They lawyered up. Samuel adjusted his tie. I'm here to discuss the potential civil liabilities stemming from yesterday's events. I stared at him. Civil liabilities? Against who? Me. The business? The HOA board is evaluating damages to community reputation, he replied, and how the gas station's actions may have contributed. I actually laughed. It came out high-pitched and borderline hysterical. Your client Beverly staged a protest, blocked access to my business, and screamed through a megaphone that we were oppressing her right to gasoline. Samuel nodded calmly. Yes, and she alleges your refusal to provide service ignited the situation. I didn't refuse service, I snapped. I refused free gas. Tessa crossed her arms, stepping closer, and your precious HOA president called 911 because she didn't want to swipe her card. Regardless, Samuel continued, the board is obligated to explore all avenues. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. The relief from earlier evaporated. So, you're suing us, he hesitated. Not exactly. The board is divided. Some members believe Beverly acted alone. Others fear that if no action is taken, she may sue the HOA herself for lack of support. They're trying to decide on the cleanest legal direction. Tessa threw her arms in the air. Unbelievable. She nuked her own HOA, and now she's threatening to sue them. Samuel sighed. I'm not saying she has a case. I'm saying she is. Persistent. He placed a card on the counter. If the HOA decides not to pursue action, you won't hear from me again. But if Beverly pushes her narrative, we may require a statement from you. As he left, Tessa muttered, I swear, Beverly is like glitter. Even when you think you've cleaned it all up, there's always some stuck somewhere. I couldn't help but agree. The afternoon came and went in waves. Some customers came in just to gossip. Some thanked me again. Some wanted selfies as if defeating an HOA tyrant had made me famous. Word spread fast that Beverly had been officially removed as HOA president, and the town was already making memes. Tessa showed me her favorite, Beverly's face photoshopped onto a gas pump with the text, "Insert drama to begin." I thought that might be the last of it. But the real twist, the one I never saw coming, showed up at 5:42 p.m. The bell above the door jingled softly. I looked up, already expecting another apology bouquet or a curious resident. Instead, Beverly herself walked in. No sunglasses, no megaphone, no clipboard, no entourage. Just Beverly, small, tense, and strangely quiet. Tessa froze mid-sip of her soda. Beverly approached the counter, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. She looked like someone who hadn't slept since the earth cooled. "Mark," she said softly. I blinked. Hi." She swallowed hard. "I didn't come to fight." Tessa raised an eyebrow. That would be a first, but Beverly ignored her. Her voice was shaky. "I came to apologize." Time stopped. The soda machine hummed in the background. A fly buzzed against the window. Somewhere outside, a car honked. But inside the store, the world held its breath. "I lost my position today," she continued. "My reputation, my standing, everything I built in that community." Tessa mumbled, "Built or terrorized." Beverly winced, but kept her gaze on me. "I don't expect forgiveness, and I know I embarrassed myself. The entire town saw it. But I panicked." "About what?" I asked carefully. She hesitated, then, "Control." She exhaled shakily, as if admitting it hurt. "When I felt like I was losing control, I overreacted, and I dragged everyone into my mess, including you. I didn't know what to say." She looked at me, eyes glossy. "You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." Tessa stared. Stunned into silence for the first time in her life, Beverly took a small envelope from her purse and placed it on the counter. "I withdrew all complaints," she said. "Everything, even the ones I filed with the county. This is a written statement confirming it." I hesitated, then picked up the envelope. Inside was a signed letter, retracting every accusation. She stepped back. "That's all? I won't bother you again." And with that, quietly, without theatrics, she walked out. Tessa whispered, "Well, damn. Character development?" I didn't know how to feel. Relieved? Suspicious? Grateful? Maybe all of it? Or maybe Beverly's downfall had shaken her enough to see herself clearly for the first time. Whatever the case, the war was finally over. The store felt lighter, so did I. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops of Ridgeview Meadows, casting long shadows across the quiet street, I realized something. This wasn't just about gas. It had never been about gas. It was about standing firm when someone tried to use power they didn't deserve, about refusing to yield to intimidation, about letting truth win even when lies screamed louder. And somehow, despite everything, we had survived. The next few days rolled in quietly, almost suspiciously so. After the chaos Beverly had unleashed, the silence felt unnatural, like the town was collectively holding its breath. Customers trickled into Ridgeview Fuel and Supply as usual, but the energy was different. People spoke to me with a kind of reverence, as if I were some knight who had slayed a dragon and saved the village. Tessa leaned into that narrative far too enthusiastically. Every time someone brought up the incident, she'd clap me on the back hard enough to bruise and announce, "Yep, that's our Mark, defender of pumps, protector of receipts, the HOA's worst nightmare." I'd roll my eyes, but, truthfully, part of me was proud. I hadn't set out to challenge the HOA or to expose their tyrant queen, or to become a meme on the Cedar Ridge Facebook page. I just wanted to do my job without being arrested for refusing to hand out free gasoline. But something about standing up to someone who had bullied an entire community, it felt good, right, long overdue. Still, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for another complaint, another protest, another SUV, covered in handmade posters. Trauma does strange things to a man. By the fourth day, when nothing catastrophic had happened, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Life settled into a rhythm again. The pumps hummed, the slushy machine groaned. A trucker bought 3 hot dogs and an energy drink and somehow didn't die on the spot. Everything made sense again. But there was still one last thread in this story that needed tying, and it found me sooner than I expected. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the store windows, casting warm gold across the counter. Tessa was rearranging the candy display, mostly because she liked to eat the rejects, when the bell above the door jingled. It was Richard Lawson, the new interim HOA president. This time, he wasn't in a business suit. He wore jeans and a polo shirt, like a man who was finally free from the tyranny of mandatory professionalism. "Mark," he said, offering a friendly nod. "Mind if I talk to you for a moment?" I stepped aside. "Sure. Everything okay?" "Actually, better than okay," he smiled. "We held a formal vote last night. Beverly is permanently removed. No appeal, no loopholes, no second chances." Tessa clapped once. "I'd like to thank the Academy," Richard continued, pretending not to hear her. "We're also revising several HOA bylaws to prevent abuses of power like the ones she committed. Transparency measures, audit requirements, limits on unilateral decisions, the works." "That's good," I said honestly. "The neighborhood will be better off." He nodded, then hesitated. "There's more. We found things." My stomach tightened. "What kind of things?" He lowered his voice. "Emails, misuse of HOA funds, personal expenses charged to community accounts, unauthorized fines, misleading statements in official documents. It's a long list." I exhaled. "I'm guessing the HOA isn't ignoring it." "Definitely not," he said. "The board is moving forward with legal action. We're working with the city attorney, and," he placed a stack of papers on the counter, "we're clearing your name completely." "Was it unclear?" Tessa scoffed. Richard shook his head. "Not anymore. This is the official record of our investigation. It states that you did nothing wrong, that Beverly acted alone, and that her accusations were false." He slid the paperwork toward me. "Professional, stamped, signed by every board member. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the weight truly, completely lift. "Thanks," I said, and meant it. "Really," Richard smiled. "If the neighborhood gives you trouble again, call me directly. I want Ridgeview Meadows to be known for more than, well, Beverly." "She's going to haunt the place forever," Tessa muttered. Richard chuckled. "Probably, but we'll deal with it." He waved goodbye and left. As soon as the door shut, Tessa spun toward me. "Dude, you're a freaking legend." I shook my head. "I'm a guy who almost lost his job because someone demanded free gas." "A legend," she repeated, poking my chest, "with paperwork to prove it." We laughed, and for the first time, it didn't feel like relief, it felt like victory. But the story wasn't truly finished until the universe offered its closing scene. And that moment arrived that same evening. The sun dipped behind the ridgeline, turning the sky a deep orange. We stepped outside to take a break, sodas in hand, watching the road settle into twilight. The day had been calm, the kind of calm that lets your nerves finally unclench. Then a car approached, slowly, carefully. A beige sedan with a dented bumper. Tessa whispered, "Is it?" "No," I said instinctively. "It can't be." But it was. The sedan pulled into the lot, hesitated, then parked crookedly. The driver's door opened, and Beverly stepped out. Except she wasn't Beverly the HOA tyrant anymore. No sunglasses, no clipboard, no airs, no armor. She wore a plain sweater and jeans. She moved slowly, as if each step was a negotiation with gravity. Her face wasn't furious. It was tired, hollow, human. I straightened. Tessa tensed beside me. Beverly stopped a few feet away, her eyes lifted to meet mine. There was no fire in them, only resignation. "I heard," she said quietly, "that the HOA cleared your name." I nodded. "They did." She swallowed. "Good. That's good." Tessa crossed her arms. "So what now? Want to accuse him of stealing your gas molecules from the air?" Beverly flinched. "I'm not here to fight." She took a deep breath. Her voice cracked. "I lost everything. My title, my influence. My home might even be at risk if the board sues me. I spent so long controlling everyone else that I didn't see what I turned into." Silence stretched between us. "I'm sorry, Mark," she whispered. "You didn't deserve any of it, and I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed to say it." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card, handwritten, the words shaky but sincere. "I wrote you a proper apology, for everything." She extended the card. I hesitated, then took it. "Thank you," I said quietly. She nodded once, stepped back, and without another word, returned to her car. The engine sputtered, the headlights cut through the dimming light, and she drove away steadier this time. No theatrics, no screeching tires, just a quiet exit from a story that had spun wildly out of control. When the car disappeared over the ridge, Tessa let out a low breath. "Well," she said, "that's one hell of a character arc. She's still responsible for what she did," I murmured. "But maybe she's finally facing it." "Yeah," Tessa agreed. "Better late than never." We stood there for a moment, watching fireflies gather near the fence line. The world felt calm again, genuinely calm. And as I looked at Ridgeview Meadows in the distance, its neatly trimmed hedges glowing in the sunset, I realized something powerful. Sometimes you don't choose your battles. Sometimes they show up in your doorway demanding free gas. But how you stand your ground, that's what defines you. And in this strange, surreal war with an HOA, Karen, for once, the little guy won. Some battles in life don't arrive with warning signs. They show up disguised as an angry customer, a petty rule, or a person convinced the world owes them everything. But what this whole ordeal taught me is simple. You don't have to match someone's chaos to protect your peace. You don't have to bend just because someone shouts louder. Standing firm, calm, steady, and honest can turn the entire tide, even when you feel outnumbered. In the end, truth has a way of rising through the noise. Communities remember integrity, and when someone uses power to bully others, that power eventually collapses under its own weight. So, if you've ever faced your own hoe, Karen, remember, you're not alone, and you're stronger than you think. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a crazy HOA or an unreasonable neighbor? Tell me your story below, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss the next wild HOA tale.